Strive Dialogues. Today is our 27th episode, and we are going to discuss today China. This discussion has been made primarily with the view to target officers of the Indian Army, Air Force, and the Navy who are going to be appearing for Staff College entrance examination, which is a very important examination in their career, and therefore it will be quite handy for them while preparing for their current affairs paper and also military history, because this year we have 1962 war as the military history campaign. And to discuss this very important aspect of China, we have with us our man to go, Brigadier RK Bhatia. Welcome, Brigadier RK Bhatia, to our show.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, so we will do this discussion in a bilingual manner because हमारे दूसरे भी श्रोता हैं जो कि हमारे इस प्रोग्राम को सुनते हैं, तो we will be kind of English and Hindi mix. So therefore, everybody should benefit from this hard research work which you have done. Today, we are going to discuss two very important aspects of China, and that is the assimilation or annexation of Xinjiang and Tibet into China. Why they did it, उन्होंने क्यों इनको assimilate किया अपने अंदर, और उसको करने का उनका मकसद क्या था, तरीका क्या था, और इसका जो प्रभाव हमारी सिक्योरिटी पर पड़ा है, the impact on our own security of India, what has been that impact? We will be discussing all these issues with Brigadier Bhatia. जैसा कि आप लोग जानते हैं कि 1949 के पहले चाइना और इंडिया की बाउंड्री नहीं थी आपस में। हमारी बाउंड्री तिब्बत से थी, हमारी बाउंड्री जिंजियांग से थी, हमारी बाउंड्री जो थी नीचे म्यांमार था, यूनान था, इन लोगों के साथ हुआ करती थी, लेकिन चाइना से कोई डायरेक्ट हमारी बाउंड्री नहीं थी, और जिसकी वजह से हमारे और चाइना के बीच में सदियों से एक बहुत अच्छी रिलेशनशिप चल रही थी, क्योंकि हम नेबर नहीं थे, क्योंकि हम हमसाया नहीं थे, इसलिए डायरेक्ट इम्पैक्ट नहीं था। लेकिन जैसे ही पीआरसी ने चाइना के ऊपर अपना कब्जा किया और नेशनलिस्ट को भगा दिया वहां से, वो ताइवान चले गए, दे वेंट टू ताइवान, देन दे स्टार्टेड बैंग विद इन 1 year दे स्टार्टेड exploring the rim of China, because they felt that unless your borders are strong, you cannot rule, and they were probably keeping the century of humiliation in their mind while they did these actions of assimilating these various regions which we are talking about. Xinjiang, in fact, Inner Mongolia, Xinjiang, and then Tibet were the major ones which have had a profound impact on the security of India. So I will straight away start off with my first question to Brigadier Bhatia. Brigadier Bhatia, can you give an overview of this process of annexation? इसका एक ओवरव्यू, हिस्टोरिकल व्यू क्या आप देंगे हमारे को, हमारे श्रोताओं को? ओवर टू यू।
थैंक यू सर। सर, जैसे कि आपने बोला था, इंडिया और चाइना की कोई बाउंड्री आपस में नहीं मिलती थी। ये मैप में जैसे आप देखें तो तिब्बत और पहले सिंचियांग और फिर बाद में तिब्बत, जैसे ही चाइना ने इसको अपने साथ एनेक्स करके अपने इस क्षेत्र को जोड़ लिया, आज की डेट में हमारी तकरीबन 3,500 किलोमीटर की बॉर्डर जो है चाइना के साथ डायरेक्ट पड़ते हैं। तो सर, टुडे वी विल डिस्कस दैट हाउ एग्जैक्टली एंड व्हाई फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल दे एनेक्स्ड इट, क्यों उन्होंने इसके ऊपर कब्जा किया और उससे उनको क्या एडवांटेज हुई, और आज के दौर में किस तरह से इस सब एरिया को वो अपने इकोनॉमिक प्रोग्रेस के अंदर भी उसको इस्तेमाल कर रहा है।
ओके,
हिस्टोरिकली सर, जो सिंचियांग है वो ईस्ट तुर्किस्तान का एरिया भी कहा जाता है। उसके जो पॉपुलेशन है वो उगूर मुस्लिम्स हैं, जो कि सुन्नी मुसलमान हैं, और उनके जो रूट्स हैं वो आज की सेंट्रल एशियन कंट्रीज तुर्कमेनिस्तान के साथ ज्यादा मिलते हैं। तो ये हान चाइनीज के साथ इनका कोई लेना देना नहीं है। एक टाइम था जबकि रशिया भी इस तरफ बढ़ रहा था और सिंचियांग को रशिया ने भी एक समय में कैप्चर कर लिया था, लेकिन रशिया इसको अपना, उस टाइम पर हिंदुस्तान में ब्रिटिश इंडिया थी, और अगर हम देखें तो गिलगिट बाल्टिस्तान जो आज पाकिस्तान ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर में है उसकी बाउंड्री मिलती थी। तो जो हम ग्रेट गेम की बात करते हैं, सिंचियांग भी एक बार उसी का पार्ट रहा है, क्योंकि यहाँ पे ब्रिटिश इंडिया जो कि बहुत पावरफुल सुपर
यहाँ यहाँ ब्रिगेडियर भाटिया मैं थोड़ा क्लैरिफाई करना चाहता हूँ कि गिलगिट बाल्टिस्तान टेक्निकली जो था हमेशा इंडिया का हिस्सा था, तो इसलिए मैंने कहा था कि सिंजियांग की जो बाउंड्री थी पूरी की पूरी भारत के साथ थी, क्योंकि महाराजा हरि सिंह ने तो हमारे को इंस्ट्रूमेंट ऑफ एक्सेशन साइन कर दिया था, तो इस वजह
उसमें।
से बाउंड्री क्लियरली इंडिया, और क्योंकि इंडिपेंडेंस के 2 साल के बाद की ही ये बात है, तो ये पूरी कहानी वहां से शुरू हुई जहां से हमने इसका जिक्र किया था। ओवर टू यू।
कैन वी हैव द नेक्स्ट मैप सर?
या गो अहेड।
सो ये जैसे कि आप देखें जो ब्लू एरिया में ये ईस्ट तुर्किस्तान है और इसको कैप्चर किया गया, सिंचियांग इसका नाम दिया गया। सिंचियांग का मतलब होता है न्यू बॉर्डर्स और न्यू फ्रंटियर, मैंड्रीन का वर्ड है ये, इसका मतलब है न्यू फ्रंटियर। तो इसको कैप्चर किया गया चाइना द्वारा। सिमिलरली टिबेट वाज आल्सो एनेक्स्ड। इफ यू सी सिंचियांग इज कॉल्ड सिंचियांग उगुर ऑटोनॉमस रीजन और टिबेट जो है वो टिबेट ऑटोनॉमस रीजन। अब चाइना में ये ऑटोनॉमस रीजन का उन सब जगहों पे है जहां पर हान पॉपुलेशन जो है वो मेजॉरिटी में नहीं है। हान की जगह कोई और एथनिक पॉपुलेशन, जैसे कि सिंचियांग में उगुर मुस्लिम्स और टिबेट के अंदर टिबेटन्स आर इन मेजॉरिटी। सो ये दो एरियाज जो हैं ये ऑटोनॉमस रीजन है। इसके अलावा 3 और एरियाज हैं जिसको वो ऑटोनॉमस रीजन बोलते हैं। सर जैसे जैसे हम आगे इस डिस्कशन को इन फ्यूचर करेंगे तो वी विल टॉक अबाउट दैट सम डेज।
ओके।
ये एक बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग मैप है। इधर मैं इस मैप के जरिए ये बताना चाहता हूँ कि ये जो मैप है ये एक सैटेलाइट इमेजरी है जो कि ईस्ट इंडिया की रात के टाइम पर सैटेलाइट इमेजरी ली गई है। इसमें अगर आप चाइना का एरिया देखें तो ये जो रोशनी दिख रही है राइट साइड में, दिस इज बाय एंड लार्ज द मेन हार्टलैंड, हान हार्टलैंड जिसको हम कहते हैं।
So, Brigadier Bhatia, मैं यहाँ पर I would like to draw the attention of our viewers, since this is a very important point which you have depicted in this map, is the game of lights. I won't call it as a game of light or hypothesis of light. There was a political scientist who came up with this theory that your comprehensive national power is reflected in the quantum of lights which are shown over an area. Now, if you see China itself, it is showing almost full brightness towards the eastern coast, but where the outlying regions are, which they annexed, is in total darkness.
Absolutely.
And then the next lighted area is India. Now, if you see India, India is a typical example of a very good relation with its neighbors, very good equi-distribution of resources. As you can see, in India, lights are all over, almost uniform over the entire country. चारों पूरे देश में एक ही तरह की लाइटें दिख रही हैं आपको। कैपिटल सिटीज में थोड़ा ब्राइट लाइट है, जैसा कि चाइना में भी है ईस्टर्न कोस्ट में। तो ऐसा नहीं लग रहा आपको कि ये एक दो मॉडर्न एरास के बीच में एक स्टोन एज एरा वाले इलाके को रख दिया गया है, और उसको चाइना ने बिल्कुल नेग्लेक्ट कर रखा है। द चाइनीज हैव एब्सोल्युटली नेग्लेक्टेड दिस। आई थिंक दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू टेल टू आवर पीपल सो दैट दे अंडरस्टैंड दिस पर्टिकुलर डिफरेंस। ओके, गो अहेड
सर। जो पॉइंट आपने बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट बताया सर। The classic example of it is where we have marked South Korea. If you see the progress which is there in South Korea and just north of it, it's absolutely dark.
Absolutely.
Even in
Absolutely.
India, the portion which is looking dark is the state of Odisha.
Absolutely.
So yes sir, ये जो टिबेट ऑटोनोमस रीजन और सिंचियांग ऑटोनोमस रीजन है, इसका इस्तेमाल चाइना अपनी सिक्योरिटी में, अपने रिसोर्सेज के लिए कर रहा है. And both the regions are restive. China is worried about its periphery. And like you had said, that जब तक पेरिफेरी किसी भी देश की जो बॉर्डर्स हैं, जो उसके, वो जब तक स्ट्रांग नहीं होंगे, नेशन कभी भी स्ट्रांग नहीं हो सकता. क्योंकि हमलावर, इकोनॉमिक डिस्पैरिटी, एस्पिनाज, सबोटाज, कोई भी चीज अगर आपकी गलत होनी है तो वो आपके बॉर्डर्स से शुरू होती है और उसके बाद वो कोर में आती है. अभी हम जैसे जैसे आगे देखेंगे तो ये जो चाइनीज हान हार्टलैंड, इसके बारे में हम ज्यादा बात करेंगे. एक और चीज मैं बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग सर, कैन हैव फॉर 1 more minute दैट ना, ये जो व्हाइट कलर की लाइन है, दिस इज कॉल्ड 15 इंच आइसो हाइट. आइसो हाइट सर जहां पर बारिश का देखा जाता है, तो ये 15 इंच आइसो हाइट जो है, इसके ईस्ट में ही बारिश 15 इंच से ज्यादा होती है. एंड दिस इज देयर एग्रीकल्चर हार्टलैंड ऑल्सो. एंड दिस इज द प्लेस जहां पे उनको आज की डेट में पानी की भी बहुत प्रॉब्लम हो रही है और उसका सोल्यूशन जो है वो तिब्बत से निकलेगा. सो दीज वर द इश्यूज व्हिच आई वांटेड टू हाईलाइट, सो दैट व्हेन वी कम टू आवर डिस्कशन, तो हमको ये ज्योग्राफी की जो प्रॉब्लम है चाइना की, ये हमको और अच्छे से समझ में आ सके.
यहाँ मैं बताना चाहता हूँ व्यूअर्स को, आई वांट टू टेल देम दैट द सदर्न पोर्शन ऑफ द लेस लाइटेड एरिया is rich in water, whereas the northern portion which is more favorable for agriculture, जहाँ एग्रीकल्चर ज्यादा हो सकती है, वो पानी की कमी से जूझ रहा है. इस वजह से ये आप देख रहे हैं कि वो कई सारे कनाल्स बना रहा है इनको वाटर को साउथ से नॉर्थ में ट्रांसफर करने के लिए. दिस इज जस्ट फॉर इंफॉर्मेशन. वी had a very detailed discussion on water problems of China with Major General Chaturvedi. Those who are interested to know in detail about the water woes of China, please listen to our video. It is there on the YouTube. You will get a full-fledged view of this. Okay, go ahead. Should I move to the next one?
Yes sir, we should.
Okay.
अभी एक बहुत जनरल मैं आपको बता रहा हूं कि why do two nations go for a conflict? Now, basically, there are 3 aspects which we need to cover when, as far as any nation's interest is concerned. He is looking for influence, he is looking for resources, and of course he is looking for territory. अब ये तीनों चीजें जो हैं, ये किसी भी कंट्री की डायनामिक्स को एक्सप्लेन करती है कि अगर वो एक्सपेंशनिस्ट है या वो अपनी टेरिटरी को बचाता है. तो वो किस वजह से वो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट में जाता है. सबसे पहले वो अपनी डिफेंसिबिलिटी को इंप्रूव करता है. अगर उसके पास टेरिटरी ज्यादा होगी तो वो जैसे कि माओ का एक डिक्टेट था, ल्योर द एनिमी डीप इनसाइड योर ओन टेरिटरी, देयरबाय स्ट्रेचिंग हिम सो फार. तो कहीं ना कहीं एनिमी जब बहुत लंबा आपके एरिया के अंदर आ जाएगा तो कहीं ना कहीं उसकी एक वीकनेस डेवलप होगी.
Mao is actually founder of guerrilla warfare, I can say, and he learned this strategy from actually the Russians in the First World War, Second World War, when the Russians got the Germans inside so much that their lines of communications and lines of supplies were absolutely gone. Winter set in, and the Germans were defeated piecemeal in detail by the Russians. Okay, go ahead.
So the line of communication moment they are
मैं इस समय इसलिए भी आई एम टेलिंग ऑल दीज थिंग्स इज सो दैट द पीपल हु आर गोइंग टू अपेयर फॉर staff college etc, they can understand how to analyze a particular campaign or a particular war, because these things when compared to the other wars give them the correct idea as to why Mao did what he did. Okay, sorry
Sir,
for
in addition to what you had said कि he learned it from Russia, उसका एक प्रैक्टिकल एक्सपीरियंस भी था जब 1934 के आसपास उसने एक लॉन्ग मार्च किया था.
हाँ जी.
ये लॉन्ग मार्च वाज ऑलमोस्ट total kilometer coverage by the Red Army, as we used to call it at that time, and PLA now, was 9,000 kilometers in 370 days.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that long march जब उसने किया, उस वक्त उसने वेस्टर्न चाइना जो आज तिब्बत और सिंचियांग है, ये उसने आइडेंटिफाई किया कि ये एरिया अगर हमारे पास आ जाएगा तो हम अपने जो दुश्मन है, जो हमारा बॉर्डर है, उसको हजारों हजारों मील अपनी चाइनीज हान हार्टलाइन से दूर कर सकते हैं। ये आइडिया उसका उस वक्त आया था। एंड ही आल्सो हैड ए हिस्टोरिकल पर्सपेक्टिव बिकॉज चिंग डायनेस्टी, जिसकी 1911 में जो खत्म हुई थी, उसका दोनों सिंचियांग और तिब्बत, जो हमारे मेन टॉपिक हैं, उसके ऊपर कब्जा था। तो दैट इरिडेंटिस्ट claim that we call, that is historically proven claim, had already existed, though 1949 कंट्रोल नहीं था। और जो माओ ने किया was to regain or the Qing dynasty control over Xinjiang and Tibet। अब अगला जो इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट कॉन्फ्लिक्ट का रहता है वो आइडियोलॉजिकल रहता है। अब चाइनीज कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी अपनी आइडियोलॉजी को जितना फैला सकती थी, दुनिया में चाहती थी, उसको जितना टेरिटरी वो लेगी। वो अलग बात है कि आज की डेट में भी वो जूझ रहे हैं दोनों सिंचियांग और तिब्बत में कि अपनी कम्युनिस्ट आइडेंटिटी को इस्टेब्लिश किया जाए। लेकिन इतने सालों के बाद 70+ years also they have not been able to impose the communist ideology into both Xinjiang as well as Tibet। जितना आपके पास एरिया ज्यादा होगा उतना आपका इन्फ्लुएंस बढ़ेगा। आपका इन्फ्लुएंस बढ़ेगा इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी में, आपके बारे में आप अपनी बात मनवा सकते हैं। इसी वजह से चाइना इंटरनेशनल ट्रीटीज और रूल्स और रेगुलेशंस जो कि वर्ल्ड वॉर 2 के बाद बनाए गए थे, उस टाइम चाइना वीक था। तो आज की डेट में जो भी इंटरनेशनल रूल्स और रेगुलेशन और ट्रीटीज उसको सूट नहीं करती है, ही स्टार्टेड चैलेंजिंग देम। So this has happened because his influence in the international community has increased. Of course, nationalism, Mao, ingrained nationalism to a great extent. Historical wrongs भी एक रीजन हो सकता है। वो सोच सकते हैं, परसीव कर सकते हैं, या वो रियल होता है। उसका बदला देने के लिए भी जो नेशंस हैं, दे गो इनटू वॉर। ऑफ कोर्स, लाइक आई मेंशन्ड, रिसोर्स, हर जगह रिसोर्स की ही बात है, क्योंकि अब इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट है तो आपको रिसोर्सेज चाहिए। और स्ट्रेटेजिक और पावर स्ट्रगल्स जो हैं, पावर स्ट्रगल कुड बी बिकॉज ऑफ द इंटरनल फैक्टर्स आल्सो। टू एस्टैब्लिश योरसेल्फ अमंग्स्ट द population of that country also could lead to annexing and telling the local population that we are powerful and we have done good to the country। So ये मोटे मोटे अगर रीजंस को हम अपने जहन में रखेंगे तो ये उसके दोनों ऑपरेशंस बहुत अच्छे से हमको समझ में आएंगे। सो अब हिस्टोरिकल रॉन्ग्स के बारे में अगर हम बात करें तो चाइना और खासतौर पे माओ एक सेंचुरी ऑफ ह्यूमिलिएशन की बात करते थे। अब ये सेंचुरी ऑफ ह्यूमिलिएशन क्या थी? ये करीब करीब 100 साल का टाइम था जब माओ को, नेक्स्ट स्लाइड्स, जब माओ को ये लगने लगा कि ये 1839 से लेके और तकरीबन 1945, 100+ years में चाइना वाज सो वीक that it had to undergo unequal treaties that I was talking about just a minute back। ये unequal treaties सिर्फ इसलिए लगी क्योंकि उस टाइम पे चाइना पावरफुल नहीं था। और जैसे कि मैंने कहा, पावर कहां से आएगी? पावर आएगी, more and more territory will give you more and more resources, richer you become, more powerful of army becomes more powerful and influence increases। So it's a matter of these three important factors of a comprehensive national power। ओपियम वॉर्स 2 लड़ी जो कि ब्रिटिशर्स ने इम्पोज की चाइना के ऊपर, जिसके अंदर से भारत में उगा हुआ ओपियम जो है वो चाइना में बांटा गया। एंड द एंटायर जनरेशन had become an addict to opium thereby, whereas Britishers were earning revenue, the Chinese entire generation was being spoiled. If we
Uh,
see
uh,
this,
Brigadier Bhatia, I would like to just clarify on two issues. One is that these people, when they annexed Xinjiang and Tibet, and even for that matter Mongolia, you see the predominant reason of this area was that Buddhism was very strongly embedded, which was
correct,
a religious thing, and communists generally are atheists, right? Similarly, as far as Xinjiang is concerned, that was again predominantly hardcore Muslims, Uyghur Muslim, again, which is anti the communist philosophy of being a
socialism and
atheist. Basically, they are atheists. They don't believe in. That's a
any
different matter. That in India we have a communist leaders who propose who so called claim to be communist, but in the house they continue to pray and do all the religious functions. That we are not going to comment, but there are people who are like this also. Similarly, Mongolia also, Inner Mongolia, Mongolia is also a
all
kind of
Buddhist.
Muslim country. So
Correct,
somewhere it was also driven by the fear that religion might take roots the opposite way. If you go to China proper in Han Chinese I'm talking of, there are a lot of Buddhist temples.
correct.
There are a lot of even Hindu temples. In fact, there is
Yeah,
a book which is being written by Mr. Tushar. It is likely to be published very soon, where he has actually worked on the influence of India in the heartland of China. Once
absolutely.
it is published, I think it will be a terrific read for the people. Go ahead.
Sir, very, very aptly what has been described in this political cartoon, where Queen Victoria, Chancellor of Germany, Tsar Nicholas, and Samurai, they are dividing the China. So these 100 years, Mao never forgot to keep reminding the Chinese that we have gone through this humiliation of 100 years. We have to be so strong that never ever in our life we have to go through this. In fact, in the syllabus for children right from basic education, this century of humiliation is taught to them, that if you remain weak, people will come and lord over you, and they will also impose their will on your thing. So Mao
a,
had that
a,
time.
a, a fallout of this is, and when we should keep this in mind when we deal with China, is that it respects strength.
Yes,
And if India is not catering for its comprehensive national power to increase, it will ride rough over us. So
absolutely.
this is a big lesson which people must keep in mind, that while dealing with China, you have to deal with a position of strength, and for that we have to focus on our economic development for the next 10 to 15 years and make a target that we will be A B C D as far as economy is concerned, and we will be, as far as military is concerned, we'll be there, right? We are already on that path, but we need to do more about it. Okay.
So now, to go ahead on this topic, very briefly, I will cover the history of modern China. Though China is a very old civilization of more than 5,000 years, but I will just talk about 1911, a very important milestone, and that was that the traditional system of governance, that is through the emperor, who used to uh, say that he has been mandated by the heavens to rule
By the
over all
heavens,
under the heaven. And
middle
Chinese
middle
also felt at that time that they are the middle kingdom. They are in the middle of the whole world, and the world is around. So that was the time when KMT, the Kuomintang party, was raised by Dr. Sun Yat-sen, whose photograph is down below in the middle, onto the left, which is enclosed in a blue frame. So he was Dr. Sun Yat-sen. He is the one who created a party called Kuomintang. Kuomintang roughly translates into Nationalist Party. The next milestone comes is that, let's recall, 1917 Bolshevik Revolution had taken place, where the Tsar was disposed of and the Communist Party of Russia came to power. taking advantage or taking a cue from Russia in 1921, there was a fallout of from Kuomintang. There are certain members of Kuomintang which broke away from Kuomintang and formed the Communist Party, that is the Chinese Communist Party, which till date is still ruling, and presently the Secretary General is is Xi Jinping.
Yeah,
Incidentally,
some people say that it was actually engineered by the Russians. I mean, this is one of the inferences which people see, and Russia had a great influence in the evolution of China in terms of rise of Communist Party of China.
absolutely, absolutely, they were totally supporting, because Russians' aim was ideological spread. So
Yeah,
China, with its population and it is spread at that particular time, in fact, it came as a big shock to USA, because USA was backing Chiang Kai-shek.
yeah,
Of
yeah.
course,
You're
they
right.
had their own interest during World War II, because Chiang Kai-shek's army, the Kuomintang army, had kept the Japanese also engaged in China. But had the Kuomintang party prevailed, probably we may not have had communists sitting next to us.
That's history. Go ahead.
That's history. That's history. So 1934 to 1936 was again a very landmark event. That long march that I mentioned, where they walked 9,000 kilometers continuously for 370 days, and it is said that an 86,000 strong army, when they took this long march, ultimately 8,000 made it to the final destination. Many of them fell off, they left the army, or they died, or they became physically handicapped. So from this long march, a lot of inferences Mao was able to decide. Incidentally, after 1936, and this long march was basically undertaken to in a way conserve their energy against the Kuomintang party. The Kuomintang army was after the Communist Party, and there was a conflict.
Yeah.
Incidentally, in 1937, both the parties, that is Communist Party and Kuomintang, joined hand against the Second Sino-Japanese War. And till end of Second World War, they were fighting together towards approximate. And then 1945, there was a massive civil war between the nationalists, that is Kuomintang party, and the communists. And now, who's the leader who's emerged is Mao, whose photograph has been framed in red, and his political commissar of that time Red Army, Chao Enlai, who later became the prime minister or the premier of China. So these were the personalities and these were the landmarks. Now we have reached in the history 1949, 1st October 1949.
Let me just add a few points here. First of all, when this PRC became the kind of ruler of China, I tend not to call this region as China, but PRC.
PRC,
It's
correct.
it is the Chinese Communist Party, which is actually what we are referring to. China includes Taiwan also, right? And there is a party there. That is one. But the takeover or the presidentship, chairmanship of CCP of Mao was actually colored. Initially, he was taken out. Then he fought his way through back again, and finally he obtained the top position from the number two. Right. So there has been a battle of. In fact, Chow Enlai was more popular in terms of initial phases. Later on, of course, Mao became supreme leader. So this story is also there. Actually, it's not a story; it's a fact. Mao was not always the leader of the
Agreed.
Communist Party.
No,
Communist
but
Party of China.
Long March established him,
Yeah,
nice and proper.
I,
Because that was
I,
basically his
yeah.
success.
But people should know that there was a tussle of leadership there.
Correct. And he was not also the greatest or the military mind also.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh, ये डिस्कशन सर फिर दूसरी तरफ चली जाएगी तो वी विल जस्ट
No. It's okay. It's okay. It's not dusri taraf. It's part of the history.
ओके
So
ओके
that's why I'm telling you that people should know
राइट
that Evolution of a party is not simple.
Ah,
It
sir.
goes through a lot of ups and downs. Okay.
Now, moment Mao realized that they came to power on 1st of October 1949. Now they were ruling the entire, as you said, communist China, and keeping the century of humiliation in his mind, he decided that China needs to build power and must restore its greatest, restore its place in the world great histories. He had always been saying that Middle Kingdom was at their mind, and they also said that they are more civilized than any other person on this earth. And like I had said, that the mandate is from the heavens for them to rule over everybody else in this world. And the strategic thought came was that if there is a weak center, the periphery will be vulnerable. So that made him decide that the center has to be extremely, extremely strong. And repeating what you had put in the introduction, that if you have strong borders, the nation will remain secured. So this was his strategic thoughts at that particular time, because of which he decided 1st of October he forms a government, and in November he decided to annex Xinjiang. There's a very interesting aspect. He was also scared at that particular time. That moment he goes to Xinjiang, it should not happen that the Russians, who also had interest in Xinjiang, should not oppose them. So he met the trade minister of USSR that time, and he asked him that does he have any interest or build up, rather. He actually, in a form of complaint, he said that there is a build up next to Xinjiang, where the trade minister said that he is not aware of anything and there is no build-up. So now the nationalist government had also, in fact, as far as territory is concerned, nationalist government और कम्युनिस्ट गवर्नमेंट के अंदर कोई डिफरेंस नहीं था. दोनों चिंग की जो डायनेस्टी का जो एरिया था उसको अपना एरिया कह रहे थे. So
This is a very important point. Whether it is the nationalist or whether it is the CCP, the claims over territories
they
around
remain.
their around their around their heartland has been the same, ditto. So
Absolutely.
if you talk of any claim which China is CCP is making, same is the claim of Taiwan. So we need to be very careful, when we read. We must know about history. माइंडसेट क्या है, व्हाट इज देयर माइंडसेट, उनका माइंडसेट क्या है. माइंडसेट जहां तक राष्ट्रीय सुरक्षा, नेशनल सिक्योरिटी, नेशनल टेरिटरी, नेशनल सोवरेनिटी का सवाल है, वो इट इज सिमिलर. ओके, गो अहेड. एंड द
Yes.
रशियंस हैव स्टार्टेड फॉलिंग अपार्ट आफ्टर दिस ओनली. ओके.
So after he was very sure कि सिंचियांग के अंदर रशिया का कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं है, और वहां पे कुछ नेशनलिस्ट आर्मी के जो troops they were stationed there. Now what does Mao do? Now it was a young nation. He had large, almost about 5 million of peasant army. So he moves them in two directions as depicted in the map given ahead. The Sixth Army, that is composing of almost about 5 to 7,000 personnel, and two army, starting from the mainland, China, from Xinjiang, Jiquan, and coming to Xining. And from there, they took two different routes. One army went to north, and the other army came to south. Now, this was just by show of strength that the Nationalist Party troops who were there, they realized that they have been cut off from the main land, and they defected, left the Nationalist Party, and their leaders and all joined CCP or the PLA, and they came over. So Xinjiang in 2 months' time, wherein most of the time they were traveling only, by just mere posturing, they fulfilled a strategy of fighting, almost literally winning without fighting.
Yeah, you're right on this point.
So
Absolutely.
now, having captured Xinjiang, now why Xinjiang was important? that it is not only Xinjiang which they have captured. They have also captured the area through which ultimately they made a road, and this also led to capture of or annexation of Tibet. This
This is
Aksai
this
Chin
this
area.
this this is very important. This is very important. Tibet had to be annexed for access to the Xinjiang area through Aksai Chin, and that is why this entire area, what we are seeing, the kind of tussle which is going on between India and CCP, is has got roots to that point in time. Okay.
In fact, just two interesting points I will make, sir. One was that before they came to Xinjiang, India used to have a consulate at Kashgar. We used
Yeah.
to have foreign officers, foreign service personnel who were located at Kashgar. And moment they took over Xinjiang, they had promised that we will renegotiate the requirement and ultimately we will permit Indians to come and Indian foreign service to come and stay at Kashgar. We'll reopen the consulate. That building still exists there. And
Okay.
secondly, again, just a matter of interest, sir,
Yeah. Yeah.
Urumqi.
Yeah.
Urumqi is considered as the central land point of Asia.
Yeah.
And also, this is the farthest place for any sea. There is no other place which is almost about more than 2,500 kilometers from any sea. And the third interesting point is there is a depression here called Turfan Depression. It is 150 meters below the sea level. Its height is less than sea level. So just an interesting
No, no, it's
point.
very important. It's a very important point. Those who have done their mid-career courses in the College of Defense Management would realize that Urumqi or Urumqi, whatever way you want to call it, if you are speaking in English, in Chinese it is Urumqi, uh, is the center of the earth. And we had discussed the Mackinder and the Mahan theory with General Ajay Chaturvedi and General Kakkad. Please go and have a look at that video. It exactly talks about this. The person who control, or the country which controls Urmushi or center of the earth, will control the world. And that also proves the point that why the Chinese want to hold this area of Urumqi. And that also reflects in the ways Xi Jinping is behaving now.
Correct,
I
sir.
think we need to understand history to know what they are doing today. Okay, go ahead.
So there is
And
also
and it's a very good point. Anyway, we'll discuss it later. Yeah, go ahead.
Lopnor, the place where the testing of their nuclear assets is being done, is also located here. Secondly, sir, you know, by getting so much of area under their control, their defense also automatically, one is because of the initial extra territory which they get, and also the defense system, what they have done is they created a lot of roads and all in this area, and also in Tibet. So thereby strengthening the defensive potential of that. And if we go to the next slide, we realize the importance of Tibet as far as the overall, uh, again, getting back to the economics of this place. In addition to the military advantage, it also gives them a tremendous advantage in as far as economy is concerned. As we know, that China has got very limited or contested seaboard. I mean, anytime its exit and entry into the Pacific can be stopped by the USA. So is it they have to get out or break out to some place. So the border road initiative that which they are have undertaken, for that Xinjiang was very important because it gives you access not only to the Gwadar port that is very popularly we calling the CPAC, it also gives them an access to the entire Central Asian Republic, through that into Europe, coming on to Russia, Afghanistan. So Xinjiang itself, it's the fulcrum of the BRI project, and it to some extent offsets its disadvantage in the sea power.
Okay, Brigadier Bhatia, this is an excellent map, and this map would prove like a low hanging fruit for the guys who are appearing for staff college. It's a wonderful depiction of what is happening today in China and what is happening around China and how to control or contain China or restrict its designs of expansion. Now look at it. We have been always talking of string of pearls as the Chinese endeavor to encircle India. Why are we looking at it in this manner? In fact, it is the Chinese which are trying to break out.
Yes.
I always say the Chinese are a landlocked country. They do not have an access to seaboard that freely as the other countries have. They have to break out of their land frontiers, island territories to actually get into the high seas. And it is here that the opportunity lies. And I always say this as choker necklace. China can be choked by this eight front policy, and I think people are working towards it. If you take Japan, if you start from Japan onwards, Japan, South Korea, Philippines, come down to Vietnam, Indonesia, kind of neutral here and there, and to
Correct.
back them up is the US and Australia. You come down further, it is Andaman Nicobar, India. If you go further to the right, you have the Djibouti controlled by the US guys, and the Arabian Sea is fully in control of the Indians. So who is getting who is getting hamstrung? Is it India or is it the Chinese? I think
So
this map clearly indicates that kind of a. I thought it will be a good idea for people to know about it. So it's a perfect
absolutely.
thing. And the land Silk Route
Yeah.
actually is important from the point of view of Xinjiang being held with the Chinese. Go ahead.
So in the past, the superpowers like the Britishers, the USA, they ruled over the sea. Now Chinese don't have that option because firstly they've never been in the past except for a very short duration.
I would
Uh,
also, Jan Chaturvedi has given a point. I would also like to highlight here that the maps in most of the depictions which we download from the net do not show Kashmir as part of India, right? So that we can put a little
into that.
little note here that the map of India may please be uh, disregarded for correctness as the source is different. Okay, something
Absolutely.
like that can be
No,
given.
we'll do that,
Let,
sir. In fact,
let me share a story. Today I had a program, and in that I have cut out the Twitter given by Swaraj magazine, which says finally Twitter gets it right, and they are showing Gilgit Baltistan and the entire POJK in India, and there are people tweeting from this part of the territory saying, "I am in GB and I am not able to access Pakistan government." So it is something which the world is also realizing, and I think slowly we will have all these maps getting corrected. The next target would be Google, and if the Google gets corrected, I think the whole world will get corrected. Go ahead.
yes, sir. That was. I think I should have been more careful
No, no,
in
it's
this.
okay. It's okay. Everyone is
But,
actually looking at this thing. Yeah.
so and
You were
the
talking
Chinese
about the.
growing economy, yes, sir. Chinese growing economy needs a lot of energy. And as luck would have it, Chinese do not have too much of natural resources within them. They have some coal, but the quality of coal is so poor that it will result into more pollution than giving them any energy. Other than that, they don't have oil. So majority of their oil is being imported. Now, Xinjiang is one place where there is a talk of a lot of oil reserves being there. There are also minerals plus the natural resources of energy, that is windmill, that's also can be generated from Xinjiang. So these are the added advantages of holding on to Xinjiang, and of course it's the northern belt of the CPAC. Now, having covered Xinjiang, let's talk about Tibet. Actually, Tibet is no, when Xinjiang was annexed, yes, we were concerned, but that time it seemed that probably the location is slightly away. Tibet was right there. I mean, it was there in our heart and mind, and culturally we are so close. And both Nehru and Mao came face to face as far as Tibet is concerned. So let's talk about Tibet now. Now, this is, I thought, was a good depiction of how PRC has, chained Tibet forcibly. So unlike Xinjiang, where the communist, that is the PLA, just went and captured that particular location, it was slightly different in case of Tibet. Now, what was Mao's strategic thought on Tibet? Mao said Tibet is palm of China, and the 5 fingers that he's spoken about is Ladakh, Nepal, Sikkim, Bhutan, and Nepal, which we now call it as Arunachal Pradesh. So this statement was later, again, continuity of thoughts, was endorsed by Deng, who became the Secretary General later, and even Xi Jinping, as of now, is also talking about this statement that holding Tibet is extremely important for China. Now, let's not forget that what happens if you're holding Tibet? You have access to South Asia, and by having access into South Asia, ultimately, if you have good access over South Asia, Southeast Asia, and the entire Asia just automatically falls into the place. Because if we see the main heartland of China, other than through Tibet, there is no other option for them to come and dominate the South Asian country. And India is the only, reasonably strong challenger to their power in Asia. So now they have come, by capturing Tibet, they have come right next to India. And these fingers that they are talking about, if we really see, most of their our issues of boundaries also come up in this, or rather all our issues of boundary have also come up. And with all the fingers, Ladakh, Nepal, Sikkim, Bhutan, Nepal, everywhere they have a boundary dispute because they want to take advantage of
on a lighter note, since the people are getting a little serious about Tibet, we should take advantage of the statement made by Mao and later on endorsed by the other two big names, Deng Xiaoping and Xi Jinping, is that if Tibet is China, let's take the Han Chinese away and assimilate it as a separate country. And so they are trapped in their own
yes,
statement.
yes,
Yeah. So I think equating Tibet with China. So where do the Han Chinese go here?
yeah,
Anyway,
absolutely,
okay.
absolutely. Next. So, what was the importance of Tibet at that particular time? What was coming in mind of Mao? In addition to, again, giving strategic depth to the heartland, not China was very worried about interference of a foreign power through Tibet, because culturally, religiously, geographically, Tibet was closer to India. And now let's not forget, this is Cold War. Immediately after Cold War was the communist versus capitalist. So, like I made a mention, एक पूरी country communist बन गई है. So, Mao was aware that USA will not keep quiet. There will be operations by CIA, और उसमें अगर हम टिबेट को नहीं कैप्चर करते हैं, नहीं एनेक्स करते, तो that is the platform जहां से CIA with Indian help can come and disturb or disrupt our government in the mainland China. So ये 2-3 major reasons है जिसकी वजह से Mao decided. Now again, it was not as simple as Xinjiang. Firstly, the nationalist group, unlike in Xinjiang, were not present inside Tibet. Plus, Tibet was too big. All 2.5 million square kilometers was the area of Tibet. Incidentally, again, I want to clarify that we talk about Tibet autonomous region, but originally Tibet was much more than this. It was also 2 more provinces, that is Chamdo and Amdo. So these were the 2 provinces which were part of Tibet. So it was a huge area.
Actually, here I would again like to tell our viewers that Tibet was a country which was expanding and contracting in areas, right? And the communist Chinese have taken advantage of this fact that Tibet once upon a time extended right up to the boundaries of West Bengal,
Absolutely.
and in the north they went right up to Mongolia.
Yes.
Tibetan kingdom was a very huge kingdom once upon a time. Subsequently, it contracted to what you are seeing today. So the Chinese take advantage of this, and that is why they claim Arunachal Pradesh to be their territory. And they show these maps to you. Some of the maps have been incorrectly generated. Fake maps have been also generated by the Chinese Communist Party. But you should be aware that Tibet was a very powerful country few hundred years back. Okay.
Incidentally, sir, you mentioned about Mongolia. Uh, Dalai Lama, who's the spiritual, temporal, and political leader, Dalai Lama word itself is from Mongol, which
Yeah.
basically means ocean of knowledge. So it's a
Okay.
Mongol because Mongolians had also become followers of Buddhist Tibetan Buddhism. So that was the influence of Tibet. In fact, even till 1949-50, the Tibetans were of the opinion that they have a priest and a patron relationship with mainland China. They used to
Yeah.
call themselves as priest, and like you had mentioned, that Buddhism was there in China mainland, and they used
Yeah.
to consider themselves. And they were very surprised that how come a patron शिष्य जो है उसने गुरु के ऊपर कैसे अटैक कर दिया. There were many lamas who were surprised by this attacks.
Okay. Let's move ahead because we are
Yes. Yeah.
now coming closer to our time. Yeah.
So now this is how Tibet was annexed. Like I had mentioned, in the outskirts, there were two more regions technically part of Tibet, but they had an independent government of Kham and Chamdo. So again, two-prong attack was there, and on in October 1950, they came and attacked Chamdo, which is northwest of Lhasa. And thereafter, now at the same time, let's go back to our concept of Aksai chain. Moment they did this simultaneously, almost simultaneously, they started constructing the road because they needed the road to come to Lhasa for the military wherewithals and the troops and the equipment to move into Lhasa. So this is probably the reason that in 50 they started the thing, but they started going very slowly. By 51, they reached Lhasa, and then they kept on engaging the Tibetans. 1954, they do the Panchsheel agreement with India. Now, at the back of their mind is the Aksai Chain Road. They wanted to be extremely strong, and negotiation position of weakness से नहीं करनी है. अगर road बन जाएगा तो automatically they were giving an impression to India that okay, now we are strong enough, so we are in a position of strength. Now come on the table and let's discuss it.
Okay.
So ultimately, Tibet was captured 31st of March 1959. Dalai Lama, decided to flee from Tibet and crossed over to India at Khimjamane in Tawang. And this time, Indian Prime Minister was bold enough to give him political asylum. And he was also permitted to come, and now he has a government which is called Tibet Government in Exile, which is headquartered at Dharamshala. So this has become a sort of political tool in our hand. Now,
Okay. Okay. Regarding water, we will not
we will,
go
yes,
into
sir,
we will not go
correct,
into detail because, as I said earlier, that we have had a very detailed program on this, and we will
absolutely, sir.
not
Yes, sir, we'll
discuss it.
skip this slide, sir. We'll skip this slide.
Now, let's go into the question answer sessions,
Yes,
and I think quickly we will do two, three questions
right, sir.
with you, which I will ask, and thereafter we can go to the audience as well.
Correct, sir.
Uh, Brigadier Bhatia, the most profound impact of Tibet being taken over by the Communist Party of China has been the impact on the border or the line of actual control, as it is called today, of almost 3,000 kilometers. Can you explain the genesis of this dispute, why it got created, very quickly for the
Right, right.
for our audience? Yeah.
Yes. So there are two major portions. In fact, there are border disputes in all. That is the western sector, which we call as the Ladakh area, the central sector, which is Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, and of course in the east, Sikkim and Arunachal and rest of Arunachal Pradesh. So, but the major differences remain in the western part as well as in the eastern part, sir. So first, I will cover the western part, where actually it's the confusion is because of three lines and different time at different circumstances. These lines were drawn by the British Indians. So okay, have next slide. So these are the lines which existed in 1865. There's a line called Johnson-Ardagh line in 1865, and it has Aksai chain coming as part of India. This is the line we are claiming is the line. Subsequently, there was a thought process within the Britishers who said that probably we cannot reach up to this line and we should not have our borders at up to this place, and we should redraw our borders and come to a place where we can actually control it. So a new line was proposed. In any case, I mean, both the lines are there still debates which are going on. So a new line was proposed, which is called McCartney-MacDonald line, which was in 1899. Now there was a debate between people who wanted the boundary to be further ahead and people who wanted the boundary up to the area to which it can be claimed. Whereas Chinese have claimed their line according to this red dotted line that we are giving. Somehow, we've never been able to come on to a conclusion where we have sat across the border to define, because Chinese never thought that this has been the Johnson land which we are claiming is the border or the Ellis border to be there, because it was not in their mind, and the Chinese claim land was not there in our mind. So there is a lot of disparity in the perception of that what exactly is the border. But yes, it is true that these three lines have never been discussed amongst the two countries ever. But this Johnson-Ardagh line is the line which is our boundary, and the Aksai chain area belongs to India, through which this western highway, which starts approximately in Kashgar in Xinjiang and goes right up to Lhasa, also called G219, was completed in 1957-58. So this is the genesis of the problem which exists in Ladakh area. So that is why we have Galwan and we have Depsang and we have Chumar and all these places, because the perception is different, that which exactly is the line. And the Chinese are not will not come to table till such time they feel that they have had total military control over Tibet and Ladakh. And in the meantime, India is also increasing its capability by going in for new tunnels, 24/7, 365 days connectivity, improving the infrastructure in terms of roads and connectivity. So all these actions are being taken. So we
Brigadier
will become.
Bhatia, Brigadier Bhatia, before we go ahead, I would like to highlight that as per the instrument of I mean even before the this John Arda line, there was an agreement between the government of JNK and Tibet, and in which the areas were up to Exaichen, etc., were all part of the
Correct.
JNK state or JNK kingdom, as you may like to call it. So therefore, there have been actually so many claims and counterclaims that this entire area has become a
It's got
confusion,
muddled up, sir.
and that is the reason why sometimes people say that they have crossed the LAC, they have not, they have crossed over to Indian territory, they have not crossed over to Indian territory. We say that they have done transgression. So different kinds of words are being used. It is because of this game of line. And agreements have taken place much before
Yes,
Johnson line, but that was state level agreement between Tibet and this. And in all the agreements, there used to be a Chinese guy who
yes,
used to be the,
present.
who used to be the kind of a governor. I'm forgetting the title which he used to have.
Amban.
In some agreements he would be there, some agreements he has not been
Correct,
there. So
correct.
so we need to be careful of this articulation. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So this is what the confusion or the claims and counterclaims are there in Ladakh. Coming on to the eastern sector, sir. Eastern sector, the McMahon line is the one which defines the eastern sector, which starts almost, it's opposite Nepal, Sikkim, Arunachal Pradesh, goes right up to Myanmar. So these all things. Now, this was a conference which was held in 1914, wherein it was a tripartite, which is British India, Tibet, representative from Tibet, and a representative from China had attended this particular conference. So this was the place where Tibet was divided into two parts, that is outer Tibet and inner Tibet. If you see, Yusang is the one which is today's Tibet Autonomous Region. And two more provinces were there, one is Amdo and one is Kham. So these part were, the Amdo and Kham at that particular time were given to the Chinese to administer. And the outer Tibet was autonomous, and now there is a lot of debate about suzerainty and sovereignty, not go into those details. But now the line was delineated on the map, but nobody went on the ground to demarcate the line clearly that where does it exist, how it will. Incidentally, it's a very interesting thing that Chinese refused to sign on this agreement that was prepared. But that time, the mute point was that the objection was to the China border, China-Tibet border. That is Amdo and Kham's border with the Tibet Autonomous Region, and not Tibet and Indian border, which is now come as their claim. But during the
This is
1914, they
this
had not
this
objected to this.
this is a very important point for people to note, that the objection for not signing was not the border between India and Tibet, but it was for the border between Tibet and the Chinese or Han Chinese. That was the area which they were not agreeing to. So how the Chinese manipulate incident of not signing to their favor by distorting facts is yet another example of this. Okay.
So this is the dispute which exists. In detail, sir, someday we can have a very
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely separate program for this.
Yeah.
Now, coming on to this, sir, what are the major implications of all that we have discussed?
Yeah. So we'll because we are already crossing the 1 hour mark. We
Correct, sir.
what we are going to do is, I will just ask you one final question, and thereafter we can take on the questions of the audience also, because there are a number of questions, comments, etc., which the audience have given. Uh, I would like you to cover the impact on the regional dynamics in today's context of all this activity of history which has taken place in the past. How is it impacting India in particular and the region as such, South Asia and Southeast Asia, both you can combine
Absolutely.
and quickly cover this up.
Right. Sir, starting from, first of all, it has Tibet, annexing Tibet, he's come just next to our borders. And he's got an easy access into our neighborhood. And he's wooed them with his money. And Nepal, Myanmar, Bangladesh, Pakistan, we are all aware. And in fact, he is also instigating all these countries. Like, there was a fear that in case of a war, Pakistan may open another front. So we may have to confront a two-front scenario. Even Bangladesh, at one time, we were fearing that the Titliya silings of Bangladesh is just south of the Siliguri, the 22-kilometer broad Siliguri corridor, that in case he does some maneuvering there and from top coming on to Chumbi Valley, if we are stuck there, So that Bangladesh importance was also, we had considered at some time that they may cut off our northeast. Myanmar, either there was a report, of course, Coco Island reports are going on that they have a monitoring station there, but more importantly, there were reports that Myanmar may give their airfields for operations inside, if not airfield, definitely permission to fly over Myanmar. So we are basically looking at, in case of a war, we are looking at all our fronts opening up, and this is possible only through Tibet.
Okay, you made three quick big points, and I think I must need to clarify to our audience so that lest they get too worried about what you have said. First of all, is the issue of Chumbi Valley. Now, let me tell you, if he gets into the Chumbi Valley, he's getting into the trap of India, right? We
Correct,
do
sir.
have we do have access through Bhutan, and we have access through Sikkim. He can be severed from his long logistics chains, etc. Of course, he will try to ensure that this kind of a thing doesn't happen, but there is a grave danger of him getting cut off, and he's aware of this particular threat. Second thing is use of the Myanmar territory or the use of Myanmar airfields. Now, on this issue as well, we have prepared ourselves well for catering for such a contingency, and you can be rest assured that we will pick them up, we will intercept them, and well before they can do this, imagine the kind of effort which he will have to do to operate from Myanmar itself. And we do have some leverages with Myanmar government to not to have this kind of an arrangement. As far as Coco Island is concerned, the Coco Island, yes, there is a surveillance station there, what people say, but I don't think it is any physical occupation there. It's probably a radar which they have put there,
Correct.
and we do have technical capabilities to ensure that we do not give away what we have to about our country in that manner. Coco Island is far away as far as China is concerned. It's much closer as far as India is, as far as India is concerned. Okay, okay. Let me ask the last question to you. You were discussing something about geostrategic equations, right? What are the global geostrategic equations emerging today, uh, for which the Chinese may use the territory of Xinjiang and Tibet, which we have to be careful of?
Sir, these two areas, ultimately, my worry will remain that they, moment the military power, I mean, they consolidate their military power eventually, Tibet and Xinjiang being a restive area, they have no choice but to establish total control over this particular thing. And for us, for USA, in case USA wants to control China, of course they can do that on the seaboard, choking them there. The If he wants to open up yet another frontage with China, then India is the only place where, at least, even if I don't advocate that we can, but we can remain prepared for that and remain as a threat in being for China to open yet another, at least, mental equilibrium of China can be disturbed if we, the way we are building up our capabilities, in addition to being improving our defensive posture, it also has a potential to put a element of threat to China. So this is what I was looking out at, and that's the reason India has to be very, very careful with respect to our strategic alliances that we are going in for with USA, as well as to continue maintaining our partnership with Russia for future references.
Okay, I think I will just quickly sum it up so that we go ahead with the audience. As far as the geostrategic equations are concerned, Tibet is being used. Tibet and Xinjiang to some extent is being used by China to keep India on the boil.
Yes.
So it doesn't want India to settle down so that we can focus on our economic growth and military. security growth or capability building. So first thing is that we have to avoid this kind of a approach of the Chinese. For that, our location today, earlier it may not be, but in today's context, when China is almost having a confrontationist approach with the US, proves very handy.
Yes.
Okay. And this is the new geostrategic equation which is emerging and which we need to capitalize on, and we should not be shy of saying so, because ultimately we have to be a realist and we have to ensure that the Chinese are not allowed to interfere into our growth trajectory, which is on the rise. It is one of the brightest spots as far as international view and opinion is concerned, and so is the case as far as the internal assessments are concerned. So that is something which is very important for us, and we should keep in mind. With that, we will be taking on some questions. The endeavor today had been, as you all are aware, to give you a historical perspective. There may be some aberrations, errors, but those are of a very minor nature. We may not be going to so much detail as far as the preparations for staff college, etc., are concerned. But if you are able to digest this kind of information which we have tried to put out, I think you all will benefit in the overall study of China and Tibet. Tibet, to my mind, should be now referred to as a separate country. You are seeing Dalai Lama has, although given out a statement, and so has even his Sikyong, who is the president of the government in exile, Penpa sharing that we are not interested in independence. We are interested in
Autonomy.
uh, autonomy. For us, well, it's okay. Earlier also it was like that.
He's
Uh,
made statements like that in the past also.
it doesn't make a difference if it gets the full autonomy. The kind of control which China is exerting now, that will get reduced and
Yes.
diluted, which will act as some kind of a buffer state between India and the Chinese Communist Party. But will that happen? That's a matter of debate. I don't think it is going to happen in the near future, at least till the time Xi Jinping is there, or for that matter, anyone. Like I said, Taiwan, if the nationalists were ruling, then also you would have found that the claim lines would have been similar.
Yes. The
With that,
territory
yeah,
is
with
going to
that, we
change.
will take quick questions because we are touching the 1 hour 15 minute boundary, and we have people saying good evening, good evening. Okay, we have Russia has taken tough conditions on grain export. Simultaneously, India stopping rice export. In this connection, my question: how this will affect China? Okay, you would like to answer, or I can answer this?
Ah, sir. Okay, I think you can take.
Okay, as far as Kumar, as far as affecting China is concerned, China has come out with quick statements yesterday and today saying that Russia should reconsider the re-signing of the grain deal, because one of the benefactors of the wheat was China, a major benefactor. Maybe this kind of a pressure may lead to Russia relenting, or at least doing some modification and coming up with a fresh deal. Only time will tell. But given the fact that Russia and China are having a very close relationship, there are very much chances of the ban being lifted. As far as India is concerned, our bans are more related to our own internal requirements. I don't think we will indulge in this kind of sanctions unless this kind of a stop. It is always driven by our internal requirement. Like we had done a similar thing last year also, when we had stopped the export of I think onions or something. We had
Yes.
stopped the export of onions. So it is based on our internal requirement. As and when our internal situation will improve, we will restart our exports. Okay, coming down to next question, Jahin sir, as India is growing and China is coming down, do you think Xi Jinping will do something really bad thing against India without any care of how far it can escalate? Yeah,
Sir, whatever we may say, China can never be reckless. He plans, he has vision, and in fact, though Xi Jinping may seem to be redder than the red and more risk taking thing. But he will not forget what the previous Deng had said: hide your capability, bide for time. Because if his economy is going down, exactly what he cannot afford to take a anything against India, because after all he has to stay within this community of this world, and his trade in any case is going to be adversely affected. And whatever he may have, but then launching a war against India is not a easy thing. We have plugged all our loopholes which existed once upon a time. No, it's not so simple. So I don't think Xi Jinping, fine, he'll make some noises. There will be border disputes. There will be transgressions. There will be tough, longer. This thing, he'll keep you engaged. But going for a really bad thing, I don't think. And now that we are doing our homework well, we are getting into mindset of Chinese. We are reinterpreting the historical facts. We're digging out new facts. So and China will not. He cannot to
I
all
think
the
I,
facts.
I think you're right, Brigadier Bhatia. We'll leave it at that.
Yes.
Suffice it to say that given the long-term aim of China to be a number one power by the end of 100 years of its existence, the PRC's existence, or the Chinese Communist Party's existence, this is unlikely that they're going to go into a major war. They will continue to do their Islamicizing and border aggression. They want to use Tibet as some kind of a slow
Yes.
fire against India, and that is what you're likely to see. Uh, More importantly, what you need to see is the recent movements being made by Xi Jinping. He's visiting Tibet,
Yeah.
he's visiting Inner Mongolia, he's visiting Xinjiang. He is worried, man.
Yes.
Like I
He's
told
got
you,
Henry
like I,
Kissinger there, sir.
yeah, like I told you, he's trying to ensure that his Western front remains quiet,
Yes.
at least internally. But in our interest, we should ensure that China keeps looking internally.
Yes.
Now he has started shifting his focus from enhancing his own power to saying that there's a need to actually build the CCP's power.
Yes.
He's
He's
now
worried about
trying
that
to,
Communist Party
yeah,
is losing
so
support also.
he's now actually trying to build the CCP. He rather realized that there was too much of focus on himself. So there is some kind of a worry in the mind of Xi Jinping, and we should exploit that. But of course, we need to remain careful. Let's see the next question. It is the reason for not communism taking roots in Xinjiang and Tibet was that both these places had a strong religious influence of Islam and Buddhism. I absolutely right, sir. We take this point correctly. This was again, you're right, sir. It was Maharana Pratap. I have a no, sorry, this one. Guerrilla warfare did not start by Russia or Mao, but was started by Maharana Pratap and later Shivaji. Bang
Correct.
on, absolutely true, sir. In fact, Maharana Pratap was the possibly, as far as this
Yes.
continent is concerned, definitely he was the one who started, who applied this rule because he was the weaker party when compared to Akbar. So therefore, he had to resort to this kind of a tactics, and we must give him the credit, sir. Absolutely true. I had given it as a modern day recent example, more from the staff college perspective. Then next question is okay. This is a comment only. I will not go. I think this is an issue which we can discuss and debate.
Yes.
Chandrasekhar Murthy says now our position should change to say Tibet is not a part of China. We should propose an independent Tibet should be a part of our diplomacy. While we agree with Chandrasekhar Murthy ji, a very nice point, and in fact, this should become part of our narrative. But for a narrative to become convincing, we must have the affected party also singing the same tune. Unfortunately, both Sikyang in Australia has gone around saying that we don't want independence, we want autonomy. Similarly, on 8th of July, Dalai Lama has said that we don't want independence, we are I mean, nobody should be afraid of them. They want autonomy. They Chinese can come and talk to him anytime, whenever they want to. So there is this mismatch between the victim and the supporter of the victim. So we have to first get these two things together, and then only create a narrative. Otherwise, this narrative will fall on deaf ears.
But sir, my point here is that yes, they should remain open with us. We must question not only Tibet. Why only Tibet? We must question all this thing. And this one China
Sure,
policy that time
sure,
was a requirement
absolutely.
when we
See,
said this, and now
but
the dynamics
Bhati,
are
I'm not
changing.
Bhati, I'm not denying that. I'm not denying
Yes,
that. What I'm saying is, when you make a narrative has to be convincing, right?
yes, agree,
So you have to prepare the groundwork, and making a narrative for the sake of narrative will not give you the results.
agree,
A
sir. But we
narrative must make believe. My narrative should become so strong that
yes,
there should, and at least the guy who is affected must say so.
yes, that's exactly what my point was. That you should
This
have
is the
that much of capability and give him confidence that yes, we are there behind you. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Let
yeah,
him make the right noises.
yeah. Because they are going by history that we let them down in the past.
Correct, correct.
Okay. There is map shown for
So
BRI needs to be corrected as it
I
shows
own up
Kashmir.
the responsibilities, and I should have been
This
more
this is
careful.
for energy. China depends on Middle East as well as car. That is
Yes,
one of the important interests in
correct.
Xinjiang. And yeah,
Absolutely.
basically it is the Malacca dilemma, as we keep talking about it. And because of the Malacca dilemma, it has gone in for the land sea silk route. And to ensure its sea silk route, it is now trying to go through the Arctic with the help of the Russians.
Absolutely.
How far the Russians will be successful in this, only time will tell, because that route is very difficult. It has to
Yes.
be cut through. I mean, the level of ice is very high, damages to the ship, etc. We don't know what is going to be
So
the final.
theoretically, it is possible, but how exactly it's going to
Yeah, and
happen?
there are efforts going on. Whether it will be successful or not, that we don't know. है
Correct.
ना? And this point absolutely true. Rare earth
Correct.
metals. In fact, that is why the chip industry came
Yes.
into China, and now the chip industry has been restrictions have been placed by the Americans. So there is this
The chip
chip
war is on.
there is a chip war going on between China
Yes.
and the US. Let us see what is the outcome of this. There are a number of programs which are happening on the chip war. We can plan to do one with General Chaturvedi
Correct.
on the emerging chip war between the West and the Chinese. Uh, Brigadier Pankaj Sinha, I agree with Chansekar. We need to be more proactive in dealing with China. That Tibet is a good bet to play up. Good, sir. Absolutely true. Then historically, Dushyant, you are right. Neither Tibet nor Xinjiang, and for that matter, Inner Mongolia and Manchuria are Han homeland. History needs to leverage to expose Chinese expansion design. Absolutely true, sir. I mean, it is clear to anyone. Though the light photographs says it so beautifully. चाइना तो रंगीन रंगीलियां मना रहा है, और जो जो हान हान चाइना है वो रंगीलियां मना रहा है, और जो उसका पाम जिसकी वो बात कर रहा है वो अंधेरे में बैठा हुआ है. आई
रोशनी तो
मीन,
सब उधर है सर.
this could be a
Staying
very good
highlighted.
narrative. This could be a very good narrative to spread around. This is something which will work, because this is a fact and it is there on the ground. It's a satellite image. Why is it not showing? Norbu, this is a very good addition to our discussion. We are having somebody from the region. Tibet has three regions like
Correct.
Yusong, Amdo, a very big country with 6 million population before Red Chinese aggression. This was discussed, Norbu, and if there are any corrections, etc., do let us know. We will rectify them. Uh, Okay. Again, clarification before Johnson Ardag line, there was a Johnson line which
Correct.
showed area up to Kasgar Khotan
Kunlun.
line between.
Correct. It was up to Kunlun range, and
Yeah, yeah,
Bhargava was a home secretary. There was a discussion between the two, and then I mean it would have extended, so that's why probably left it.
yeah, yeah. This actually that map has got modified. It had the
Ah,
Johnson line
yeah,
also.
yeah, yeah.
In my article, it is there. The Johnson line is
Correct.
there.
Correct.
Okay. Then we have till 1933 Peking University until 1928 Chinese Postal Department showed Aksai Chin as part of British India. Yeah, your comments. This is a fact,
Yeah,
sir.
that's correct, sir. That's correct,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah. Then we have again some clarifications issued by General Chaturvedi. Just read it out.
That's correct. The Chinese refused to ratify the map agreed during Shimla conference. I mean, today they just disown that. No, we have not signed it. Though, according to some details available on the draft, the representative from the China who was there, he had signed. In fact, there's a very interesting thing. That whereas the Tibetan rep had come very well prepared with historical references and maps and even the revenue documents when he came for the 1914 negotiations. But surprisingly, which normally doesn't happen, the Chinese rep was not very well prepared. So he could not put across his point. And since he was
Yeah,
not prepared, there was a possibility of him losing a lot of influence on Tibet. Because
yeah.
that time there was hardly any power. It was just more of an influence.
Yeah, we have a
So,
very important question from General BK Sharma. Chinese have split Tibet into four provinces. Dalai Lama wants unification of Tibet. Chinese objection to 1914 McMahon line was not as much about border with
wait,
India,
wait.
but inner boundaries of Tibet. Thank you very much, sir, for the clarification.
No,
General BK Sharma has been part of various delegations which are
correct.
negotiating boundary with China, and he has an in-depth knowledge of this particular aspect. Our listeners can take the corrections and the clarifications
No,
what
we
John
gave
Sharma.
him so many points said that inner that is Chamdo and Kham, the objection was there and not with the Indo-Tibetan border. We mentioned this.
Yeah, he has clarified further to say that Chinese control over Tibet is almost total. I stayed in Tibet for 1 week in 2019. Social re-engineering and education system is such that new generation Tibetans are more swanky and drifting. Yeah, this is something which was expected, and which was
Yes.
expected because of the history and because of the
Yeah.
fact that the
Time.
diaspora diaspora has shifted out of Tibet, and those who are in the Tibet, they have to live with the masters who are there. And there has also been a kind of engineering of
Yes.
social engineering being done, demographic engineering, I would say, that
Correct.
Han Chinese are being made to settle down in these areas, and in fact, in Xinjiang, it is
It's
even
more.
more strong,
Well,
even
the
more
40
strong. I
the
believe,
locals in the north part of it, locals population has come down to almost 40% or so in Xinjiang.
yeah, yeah. So this is important. Then we have okay. There is one question by Sharat Seth. I think I must give him an opportunity to, yeah, having annexed Tibet, signed the punch seal. What was the reason for attacking India in 1962? Yeah, take it on. Take it on.
We'll cover it. I think this needs a very detailed
Yeah,
discussion,
but
sir.
give a very short answer to it.
Sir, that particular time when 1962 happened, basically what the Chinese were looking at is that they had to tell India that don't go beyond a particular point. Probably our forward policy at that particular time, what we had done was not very well thought of, and it was also a matter of reasserting Chinese claim because he couldn't have left India going. Its own way without giving due respect to Chinese claims there. In fact, that time, a very interesting thing what Jan Dushyant had mentioned, he gave a line up to which, I mean, it was south of Bomdela, if we talk about Nefa. He actually came only up to that place and went back. Though he had a problem of logistic and the communication would have gone long, but he gave a message to India that this was just to tell you that if we want, we can do it, but we aren't doing it, and went back 20 kilometers from the LAC. So it was more of a messaging that you remain there, so. In fact, there are many other reasons which will take a lot of time for us to explain.
Yeah.
I propose that we go ahead with one such
Okay, we
episode
can
in future.
we'll have a detailed discussion on 1962. But I would like to clarify one very important issue on this. Between Arunachal and Ladakh, China always considers Ladakh as priority one. Reason being that Aksai Chin is critical for its connectivity with Tibet and rest of the China mainland, and that road G219 passes through this particular belt, and unless it controls Aksai Chin, it would not be able to do so. That is why in 1962 war you will see that it left or went back to a considerable distance back, but not in Aksai Chin.
Not in.
It not in Aksai Chin. It has taken Aksai Chin complete as its security for the highway and thereafter to the Karakoram highway. So therefore, the importance of this area when the negotiations failed, it had to attack one. Two, Chinese Mao could never be relied upon, or the Chinese can never be relied upon. I have detailed expansion on this, where I've said that they believe in a policy called Dada Tantan. Dada means talk, talk, and fight, fight. So they will keep on engaging you, but you never know when they will fight with you, and they are very smart manipulators. Especially even this agreement where weapons were not to be carried during the patrols, they used cleverly to have weapons which were non-lethal and did the damage in Galwan, which possibly came as a surprise to our people on the ground. This is one of the reasons, uh, at least in places where I was, I would keep the weapons very close by handy. Of course, not in physical view, but I used to ensure that. पीछे वो पड़ा रहता था within 20 to 30 yards of the place of meeting. It was hidden, but people were there. So this kind of a thing is very important as far as flag meetings with China is concerned. They are most untrustworthy as far as any agreements are concerned.
Sir,
We will leave
one
it
quick
at that.
point in this, sir. Just one
Uh-huh.
quick point. The Panchil Agreement 1954 was basically done to gain time so that their road in Aksai Chin is completed. Because, like I
Yeah.
mentioned, the importance of that particular road, so they gained time. And by the time the road came into the existence, they went in for 62.
Yeah, yeah, and also this point is well known to people. Annexation of Saksham north of Karakoram was part of the Chinese intention.
Yeah,
They got it in seeding. That is a different matter, but that is how they have actually saved their highway, and thereafter connectivity to CPEC. I mean,
right.
to Gwadar has been basically ensured because of this. It's all about Malacca dilemma. They had the long-term vision. Possibly we were not prepared. We will not go into the political debate of that time. Maybe the compulsions of those times were different, orientation was different, thinking was different. It is only we learnt it after a hard knock on our territorial integrity. With that, thank you very much, Brigadier Bhatia. I think we
Thank you,
had a
sir.
very lovely discussion today. We also had one of my gurus, General BK Sharma, and the second guru is General Chaturvedi. Both were there on the show. And thank you very much, General BK, sir. If you're listening still, or if you've signed off, do listen to it later on. And to General Chaturvedi, our Vice Chairman, to you for having spared your time and worked so hard to get this presentation together for our 1962 Chinese Chinese history, etc. It will be proving quite handy. I thought, let me just share this. Ritik Kothari, Jan Naran said that to retake Aksai Chin and other areas, we need to get China out of Tibet. But why should they ever leave? How do we actually make this happen? Like these things are not achieved in in a day
Physically,
or so.
not count.
I today also spoke about war. War is the last instrument of last resort as far as politics is concerned. It is politics by other means, what Clausewitz said, and to go in for a full-fledged war with China today would be foolhardy to my mind, because of the fact that it will push both the sides back by 10 to
Many
15 years. Back by 10 to 15 years. We need to continue to work in the area of gray zone, soft power, continue to keep China looking inwards. China which looks inward, Pakistan which looks inward, will avoid it looking externally, and that will ensure our security. How do we make it look inwards? That we pay back to them in the same coin. So if they are hurting us through various non-lethal means, we should also hurt them through non-lethal means. We should also go in for diplomatic diplomacy, where alignments are built or partnerships are built, which convey the signal messaging to the Chinese that look, it's not going to be easy for you if you undertake a war with India. Thank you very much, Brigadier Bhatia, once again.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, sir.
Jai,
It was pleasure.
Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.